In this video, I'll show you the features of the PowerShell Pro Tools activity bar inside Visual Studio Code. So you need the PowerShell extension installed, and you also need the PowerShell Pro Tools extension installed to have this activity pane. On the left-hand side, you'll see that I have this PowerShell Pro Tools section, and if I click that, it's going to show me this list of tools that I can use for my PowerShell development experience. And each one of these kind of provides different things about the PowerShell environment that you are running inside Visual Studio Code. So I'm just going to walk through what each one does and then kind of show an example of that. The first one is the abstract syntax tree kind of explorer. The idea here is that it's looking at this current script and it's producing a tree view based on the abstract syntax tree. So an abstract syntax tree is kind of the code definition of a script. So if we start drilling down into that, what you're going to see is the first block is a script block AST. And if you hover over it, it's going to show you what the contents of that particular AST are. As I expand it, you'll see that it expands into things like named blocks, if statements, pipelines, commands, variables, and eventually strings. And you can actually put your mouse over any one of these to see what that script block AST is made up of. And then if you do want to highlight it in your script, you can use this little paint icon here. So if I wanted to highlight the if statement, I would do that. If I wanted to highlight just the variable, I could do that. And then if you want to get rid of the highlighting, you just go up to the top here and say clear that. So it's just a good way to kind of look at your script. The brackets here show the extent of the AST in terms of indexes, like text index. So that's 0 index through index 38 of the actual string that makes up this text document. So this is helpful if you're building things like tools for PS Script Analyzer or something like that. The next section here is the custom tree view. So this is actually built using PowerShell script. So if we come over here, we can look at our register VS Code tree view commandlet, and that is creating this test node here. And then we are putting the account icon and pretty much taking an action when the child is clicked. And then it's also creating these VS Code icon or VS Code tree items underneath the root of this test node. So if I actually expand that, you'll see that I have all these test nodes, and I can expand those further because it's just a nested thing. And if I click this little play button, it's actually going to show a VS Code message here. And that's part of our VS Code automation commandlet suite, I guess. A bunch of commandlets that we have for automating VS Code. So you can do whatever you want in these tree views. You could be looking up files. You could connect to some other shared resource somewhere. You can take actions when the children are invoked, and you can kind of build a tree structure however you want using this this custom node here and some special commandlets for VS Code. The next section is history. So these are actually different items that we found using get history, and they're just displayed here. And what's kind of handy about this is if there is something that you want inside one of these, you can actually click this add history to console button, and it's going to just plop it down in the console for you to execute then if you want to. And then we have the host process view. So this shows all the host processes, the PowerShell host processes that are running on this machine. So typically, this is a PowerShell process here that's running, and this is actually, if we did PID down here, it's going to show that this 43288 is the PowerShell host process here. If I were to open another PowerShell process though, so this one is PID 42116, it will actually display that inside the host process list, and you can expand that and see the run spaces that are available inside there. So other tools may use PowerShell, and they will display in here. So you'll see things like PowerShell Universal pop up in there. If you have PS Script Pad open, something like that, they'll all show up inside this host process thing. And you can actually go in and click this attach run space button, and it's going to start debugging that run space in that remote process. So if you have a wait debugger in that run space, you could actually hook in there and see what's going on inside that run space in that external process. So yeah, you can see I'm still actually attached to that process, and I can type get run space to see the remote run spaces. And that's pretty much what the thing is doing. So, all right, now let's do the next one, which is jobs. So this is just anything that uses job commandlets. So start job or start thread job are two examples of things that use the kind of job infrastructure inside PowerShell. So if I were to actually start a job, I'm just going to call get service in here, and it's going to start running that job. And if I hit the little refresh button, you can see the background job ran. It's got a little check. If that job was still running, it would have a little play icon that it's still running, and you could cancel it, or you could attach to the job to debug it. The other thing that you can do is once it's been completed, you can click this download button, which is receive job, and that will just receive that job input into the console here. And you can see I returned all my services, and then I can finally get rid of that job if I want to. So I have removed that job. Next we have modules. So this is just a list of modules we found on your environment. This is using the current version of PowerShell that's loaded here. So you can see that I am running PowerShell 7.22. And if you were running Windows PowerShell, it would find different modules, obviously. But you can actually expand those and see which versions are installed. So you can see I have a bunch of different Azure modules, Hyper-V modules, that kind of thing installed. There is an optional flag to actually check the version to see if you're out of date with these modules, but it's kind of slow because it's got to go through the PowerShell gallery to look up those PowerShell versions. So you can turn that on. It just takes a little while to kind of run through all your PowerShell modules. And then you'll see a little like icon here, a little download icon where you can click and actually update the module. We have a providers view. So in providers view, it actually allows you to see all the different providers and then dig into each one of their drives and the kind of containers within those drives. So inside like the registry provider, I'm digging into it, and I'm in HKCU, app events, event labels, default, activate and document. And what you can actually do is click this view item properties button, and it's going to pop open kind of a tree view that has all the data, the item properties of that provider item. So this works for any one of the providers that support it, and then it'll just kind of pop this up, and you can use this however you need it, copy stuff out and that kind of thing. Additionally, if you do have one of these selected, what you can do is you can click this insert path, and it's actually going to put the provider path in there so you don't have to type it out yourself. So if you're clicking around and you want like a path in your script, just click that button and it'll actually display that. So this works with the file system, environment variables. It works with the certificates. So you can kind of dig in and look up whatever you want. All right. We also have reflection support. So this is actually looking at all the assemblies that are loaded into this PowerShell process. And what you can do is you can actually dig into each one of the assemblies and look at the classes and methods and stuff inside those assemblies. So for example, if I was inside this Microsoft PowerShell commands management assembly here, you can see here's add content, for example. I have gone down into gone into the commands namespace and found the add content command. And you can look at things like methods and properties. You can also select the class itself, and if you click this button here, it's going to decompile that. And now you have some C# code that is what was used to make add content. So you could go through and see how this works. So this is kind of a cool way to kind of inspect things that are loaded up into your PowerShell environment. All right, sessions. I'm not going to show this, but this is like looking at remote sessions you may have. So if you have started in a remote session, they will show up in here. Quick scripts is just a way to kind of pin scripts to the activity bar. So even if you open VS Code in some other folder and you wanted access to some script you use all the time, what you can do is you can actually pin it. So there's this little lightning bolt on the top right here where I can click Add to Quick Scripts. And then I'm going to give it a name. I'll just call it PS. And you can see PS has now shown up inside the Quick Scripts view here. And what you can do, I don't know why this icon isn't showing, but you can click this and it will show your quick script. And you can just remove it from quick scripts if you don't want to use it. So yeah, you can populate that with a bunch of scripts that you may want access to wherever you're opening your PowerShell or Visual Studio Code editor. Finally, we have a variables view. So unlike the built-in PowerShell support, this works even when you're not debugging. So it's just always here. You can see the values of variables. You can drill down into complex objects. Like, for example, I'm drilling into the host object, which has a version. And then any property you select inside here, what you can do is you can actually click this little button here, and it will insert that variable into your PowerShell script, including the whole path out to the property that you selected. So since I was in host version major, that's what I clicked. That's the path that it put into my script for me. Finally, there is a little help and information section if you want more documentation or anything, or pop out to the forums, that kind of thing. So this video, we looked at the activity bar for PowerShell Pro Tools in Visual Studio Code.